to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yantz, and this is episode 89, and this is the wrestling show. And I'm going to talk about the goings-on in wrestling. I'm going to talk about AEW. I'm going to talk about WWE, and we'll end with the documentaries, the Brian Pillman Dark Side of the Ring, episodes 1 and 2, as well as the Macho Man documentary. So stay tuned. So something amazing happened. Daniel Bryan is no longer under contract to WWE. Yes. I am so happy. I feel like he has been hindered by working there. They won't let him do what he needs to do. They won't let him be a top guy. If they'd let him be a top guy, I'd say, okay, stay there. But they won't. He didn't get to be the top guy that he could have been. They tried to sabotage it at every angle. We got the WrestleMania moment, but that's about it. The next year, he was in the opening match, wrestling for the Intercontinental title, as opposed to where he should have been wrestling for the world title. But that's the way they think, and they don't care what any of us think. So the good news is he's free and clear. Now, whether he goes back there is up to him. But I think he wants to go travel the world, work in CMLL, maybe even work in AAA. Does AAA even exist anymore? Impact, he probably might want to work a little bit there. He wants to work at Rev Pro. He wants to work in New Japan. He wants to work in AEW. He wants to work everywhere. And WWE is not going to let him do that. And if they're not going to let him do that, he might as well just go off and do his own thing. That's what I'd like to see Daniel Bryan do. Do his own thing. And you know what? He's no longer Daniel Bryan anymore. It's time for the return of Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, the man that we saw on the Indies. That's another place he could go back to. ROH could use him. MLW. So many places could use him. It's not like he's going to be hurting for money. He can go wherever he wants, work any schedule he wants. If he wants to work once a year, he could do that. If he wants to work twice a year, he can do that. He can do whatever he wants. He's in that position. He's in that kind of position. And if WWE's smart, maybe they'll let him do New Japan and WWE. But I don't think they will. I don't think that they want to do that. So I think we're looking at him eventually coming to AEW. I see that happening more toward the fall. But the good news is after, so that night when he lost the match where he was banished from SmackDown against Roman Reigns, that was his last night in the under contract, and his contract expired that night. And what a way to go out! He had an amazing match with Roman Reigns, but I'm ready for him to be free. Go and work with Zack Sabre Jr. Go work with Okada. I'd like to see him work with Omega. He did an interview where he talked about how much he respects Omega and how much he sees him as a different wrestler. Go work with the Young Bucks. Work with Andrade in a match where they can actually have the type of Andrade match that he'd like to do, or as we'd like to all know him as El Sombre, which I hope that's where he's going back to. So the sky's the limit. I really don't want him to go back to WWE. What is there for him to do in WWE except for work with guys in the WWE style? That's not what he wants to do. They're not going to make him the main event guy. They've got their Roman Reigns. Let him leave. So now he can just go and do what he wants to do. And, the only reason they don't want him to leave is so that he doesn't hurt their competition. So he doesn't help their competition, excuse me. And to me, that's such a petty way of doing things. But that's the way WWE does things. They don't care that their product is horrible. All they care about is the content. Oh, we're making money. We're making money with Peacock. They don't care that they're not satisfying the fans' desire for pro wrestling because they're still making money. That's not Daniel Bryan. Bryan Danielson needs to come back, the American Dragon. It's all free and clear. Everybody wants to see him do this. Let's hope for that. Now, the other big thing that happened is AEW Dynamite. Drum roll, please. AEW Dynamite ranked first on cable and demo, tops 1 million viewers. That's the cover. That's the headline in the Observer. Wow, that's amazing. So this is they. It's not the highest rating they've ever done, but when you're looking at the demographics, they were up 27.3% with people 18 to 49. Women 18 to 49, they were up 17.4%. Men 18 to 49, 0.58, 34. I mean, look at all these numbers and how even 50 plus they were up. 25 to 54, 12 to 34. I mean, this is a really good rating, and it shows that they are drawing in so many different places. And this was a match that was a bloodbath. This was a bloodbath match. Everybody's saying that the blood is turning people off. Well, I don't think so. I don't think that's what's happening. I think what people want to see is good storytelling, and if there's some blood here and there, that's what's going to happen. But this drew a show. And it's amazing, and it was great. They had a live crowd there. Now the rest of the show was taped before because they had to set up that ring, that double ring, and wow, blood and guts. What a cage they constructed. It looked two rings, and the cage was big, and it had a roof over it. It resembled the War Games, but it looked better than the War Games. And the only way to win was by submit or surrender. War Games rules. That's what people wanted to see. And I'm going to talk about that in depth, but that's a ratings win. WWE's probably kicking themselves for getting off that night because they're making the most of it, and they're building loyalty because they're loyal to the customer, and the customer will be loyal to them. More and more people are dissatisfied with what they are seeing on WWE television, and this is the way to bring that, to bring those people here by giving them a good show. What was that? Okay, that was the fire alarm, which is really that was kind of scary. My heart just jumped a little bit. I may cut this out and I might leave this in just because I think it's kind of funny. That was kind of, wow, that just, whoo, that took me out of it. But this is a ratings win, and this is how you get that audience. And this is how you cultivate that audience. You continue to win them over by giving them what they're not getting, a good product. And NXT, I watched their show this week. I'm not impressed. It was just paint by numbers, nothing great. I mean, you got Finn Balor, but they're not. It's not what NXT was, which was the workers' show, where you got to see great matches, you got to see that, and it wasn't even that great then. Okay, I don't know what to do about that. So I think this is a huge win. AEW wins the ratings. NXT is awful, and WWE is continuing not to get better. So this is where we are right now. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Omega angle. Now, Omega is getting all the belts. Now, for those of you, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but it comes from Thanos. It comes from the Avengers. It comes from Avengers Infinity War, where Thanos is trying to collect all of the Infinity Stones. And so what Omega is kind of doing is gathering all the belts. Now, they keep calling it the collector gimmick, which is another Marvel character. I don't think they're going with that. I think they're going more with the Thanos and the fact that he has artwork on there of him putting all the belts in the thing as if they were gems. Tells me he's going for the Thanos gimmick. So a lot of people are thinking, like, when is he going to lose the belts? He's not supposed to lose the belts. He needs to gain as many as he can. He needs 6. He needs 6 to really complete this storyline of what it is. Now, where they go with that, I don't know. But I think it could be a really long, drawn-out storyline. And the person who beats Kenny Omega for the title, for the AEW title, will be a huge, huge story. The more titles he gains, the more he can, collect all these things. I think the NWA belt would be great. I think the ROH title would be great. I think even the New Japan title would be great. So he's got 4. He needs 2 more. That's what he needs to get. 2 more. So he has all 6. So he's got 6 belts. He's got TNA. He has the Impact Championship. He has the AAA Championship. He has the AEW World Championship. He has all the world titles in these promotions. So where this goes is anybody's guess, but I wanted to explain a little bit what he's doing, because I don't feel like a lot of people that don't, read comic books understand that that's what he's doing. Now, is he going to snap at the end? And, who knows what their plan is. But I think there's a bigger plan to all these 6 belts than just him winning the belts. And we'll have to see where that goes. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really cool angle, and I think it's making Kenny Omega into a bigger star. So that's what I've got to say about the goings-on in wrestling. Great stuff. We've got Daniel Bryan now on the free market. We've got AEW as the #1 show in cable television and the demos. And we got Omega, becoming the belt collector. And when we come back, I'm going to talk in detail about AEW Blood and Guts. So stay tuned. Let's talk about AEW Blood and Guts. This was not the best show they've ever done, but it's pretty close. It's up there. It's up there with the top shows. I still think Winter is Coming is probably their best show overall, because they just hit on all cylinders for me. But this was a great show. It was well focused. This is the first time since the pandemic they have had almost to full capacity. We know that full capacity, Double or Nothing will have full capacity in the. So that will be interesting to see that return. Let's run through the big things that happened here. They had a tag match. It was okay, but it didn't really do anything for me. I mean, we had a tag match: Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa. Moxley and them won when he hit the Kingston and Omega, then hit a clothesline into a half-and-half suplex combo for the win. Excuse me, Kingston and Omega hit a go. Omega pretty much walked off, so they never really actually beat Omega. They just beat Nakazawa. That's not the big thing, though, that happened. QT Marshall versus Cody Rhodes. They had a nice match. It's good, but, it wasn't my favorite. Cody wins, so I don't know where they go now with this feud. I guess he was attacked, so it looks like it'll be Cody and Anthony Ogogo. So that should be okay. The big thing that happened, Hikaru Shida is going to defend her title against Britt Baker. I got to believe that's probably where Britt Baker becomes the AEW Women's Champion. I think that's the right time. She's got a lot of momentum. Let her win. And then there were other things that happened, but let's get to the main things that I liked on this show were the Double or Nothing World Championship match announcement. We had Omega coming out there with Tony Schiavone, and he was talking about the belts and everything. And they said that at next week's Impact, it will be an eliminator match where it's Orange Cassidy versus Pac. The winner gets the title shot at Double or Nothing. Well, Orange Cassidy came out. Omega made fun of him, took his sunglasses, put them on Nakazawa, and they walked away. But he really put over Orange Cassidy, saying everybody wants to dress like you, this and that. I really like it. I like the dynamic of Orange Cassidy versus Omega. I know some people aren't going to like it, but I didn't see that coming. And, if we go by the rankings, yeah, let's do it. Orange Cassidy versus Omega. Pac would be good, but Pac isn't over to the level that an Orange Cassidy is. Orange Cassidy and Omega, I think, will have an amazing match. People don't think so, but I think they'll have an amazing match, and Orange Cassidy will get over even more. And that's the kind of guys I kind of want to see him work with more with that. I mean, he can work with Pac, but the Pac matches have never been my favorite. Now let's talk about our main event, the Blood and Guts, the Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle. This is what everybody's been waiting for. This cage looked amazing. Sammy Guevara starts, and then we had, and Dax Harwood started, and then Cash Wheeler came in. I'm not going to go through all the people that came in, one by one by one. I'm going to give you the gist of the match. Really good match. Really good match. We had a lot of, a lot of blood, a lot of fighting. We had bats. It looked like Inner Circle was going to win, and then Jericho chased MJF up onto the cage, and then he got the upper hand. He used the diamond ring, and then he threatened to push Jericho off of the cage. And then Sammy Guevara surrendered. They surrendered because they didn't want him to get thrown off. But then he gets thrown off anyway. And Tony Schiavone even said that no good piece of SHIT when they said that. So that was funny. I love seeing Schiavone get so worked up. It reminds me of when JR would get so worked up with McMahon. He doesn't really do that anymore, but Schiavone doing that really made MJF seem like an even more of a dastardly heel, because he cursed on live television, the announcer. Then he pushes him anyways, and a lot of people didn't like it because you could kind of see the crash pad and it looked kind of fake, and I agree, but it's better to do it safe than to make it look good, and especially when you're dealing with that height. And it's not like this is just going to be forgotten about next week. It's going to mean something, and it's going to, lead into, Jericho's return and MJF. And Jericho said on Wrestling Observer on his interview that he's got this planned out for like 8 months. So this is a long-term storyline, and I thought this was a great first chapter. I was kind of, it looked like Inner Circle was going to just beat the Pinnacle, so I guess they needed to get a win. I would have liked it to be more of a surrender, in the cage. I don't know why, MJF can't just beat Jericho, and then that could be. But I guess but they have a storyline all plotted out, so let's see where they go. But I thought this was a really good match. I don't like the finish, but what an amazing match! What a spectacle! I mean, you had blood and the two rings. It looked so cool, and it was so well developed. It's hard to do cage matches anymore and make that mean anything, because WWE has done such a wonderful job of making cage matches just meaningless. And here in AEW, they really, this was War Games. This was War Games. This wasn't that NXT version of War Games, which is so ham-fisted and looks fake, and because they won't do blood. WWE won't do blood. So now, by comparison, their matches just look so tame. I mean, they need to do blood. If they're going to have these over-the-top, insane matches and have no blood, it looks fake to me. WWE just looks so tame. They are so just in another world of lame. They have nothing cool going on. Whereas AEW is the cool product. And they're only getting cooler, and they're only getting better. And I thought, I really liked Blood and Guts. I thought, it was really, really good brawling. When Wardlow and Hager were in there, they were like really stiff with each other. Dax Harwood, bled a lot. Cash Wheeler, am I saying his name? Cash Wheeler. Yeah, he got there. Sean Spears, looked good in there. Jericho looked like a monster when he was in there with the bat and everything, and it looked like the Inner Circle was gonna win. So I guess this is a way to get out of it. I would have rather seen it in the ring as opposed to on top of the cage, and them just kind of like, oh no, please don't hurt our guy. But yeah, Good match all around. You know, you can't ask for anything more because they really, they gave you war games. It felt like a war, and that's what I wanted to see. It didn't have comedy. There was no comedy in this. There was no laughing. They were just ready to kill each other, and may the best man win. And MJF got that. He got the upper hand when he used the low blow. He used the low blow on Jericho. So he did, the way he did win was, by cheating. So it was a heelish way that he won. So all in all, I mean, I liked it. Just, the crash pad was kind of, you could see it was, it looked fake. They needed to bring up a different angle or something. But you know what? This is their first time. And, they're only going to learn from this. And I think Blood and Guts is a staple that they need to keep. And when they have their new video game, this is a match that needs to be in there. Please put that in there. That's what people want to see. The crowd was crazy. It was cool to have a real live crowd where they were just jumping up and down. And this was the highest capacity of people they've had. And they've done it smart. They, now they're going to start to open up. And I think it's, I think it's time in some ways. I mean, there is a risk, but we have to do it. MJF screamed "thank you" at the end as they. He's such a good heel, and this was good. This is everything you want to see in professional wrestling. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about WWE. So let's talk WWE. Let's start with Raw. It's awful. I don't even want to talk about it. It is awful. It is the worst professional wrestling show I think I've ever seen. It's worse than WCW 2000 to me because I just don't care about anything. WCW 2000, at least you had Scott Steiner coming up. You had Booker T. You had Jeff Jarrett at points, was kind of entertaining. You had things happening. Raw, nothing happens. This storyline with Charlotte, I don't care. So the big thing, it's not a big thing. Who cares? I'm not selling that. Charlotte and Asuka versus Asuka versus Rhea Ripley is gonna be the match at WrestleMania Backlash. Ooh, who cares? They had a thing where Lashley was gonna wrestle either Drew McIntyre or Braun Strowman. He ended up picking Braun Strowman. Braun looked like he was going to win, but then, Drew got involved, and so Braun lost the spear or some move, and then Drew came out, and they had some kind of steer. I don't care. It's awful. It's just an awful show. It's not worth your time. Don't watch this show. Teach them a lesson. Say, if you're not going to put any effort into it, we're not going to watch your show. I don't know who likes Raw. Somebody tell me who likes Raw. This is worse than Impact when Russo was writing it. There's nothing on there I can grasp. I don't care. I think Drew McIntyre is being wasted. Lashley is being wasted. Braun is being wasted. Everybody is just being wasted. It is just a throwaway, nothing show. I don't know who likes this. Who is this show for? Older people? I can't see older people liking this. I can't see younger people liking this. This show is for one man, Vince McMahon. He is the only one that must like this because it is absolutely awful, direct. I don't even want to cover it. I'm not covering it. I'm not talking about it. I watched some of it and I couldn't watch it. It is so bad. So bad. I mean, I don't think I can continue to watch Raw. I just don't care. It is so bad. Orton is hit with tomatoes, the Miz stuff, Damian Priest, nothing seems special. Nobody seems over. It is just dreck. So we're going to see. I just don't know. I like Drew, but, even if he becomes champion, who cares? It's on a brand that's awful. I'd like to see Drew switch to SmackDown or get out of there. Go back to NXT or get out of there and go to AEW. But they don't need any more guys in AEW. The only guy they need in AEW is a guy like Joe, a guy like Punk, and a guy like Bryan. You don't need any more. Everybody else would just be window dressing. And I can't believe Raw is this bad. It is just horrible. And the Fiend's not even on it anymore. All that build-up, so the Fiend's barely even on it. We don't see Bray Wyatt anymore. We just have Alexa Bliss cutting promos that I don't care about, talking about something that I don't care about. It is just god-awful. I wish he would leave. I wish he would leave. I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say anymore. It's so bad. There's nothing this... I've never seen something so bad. I mean, let's talk about SmackDown. So let's talk about SmackDown. This was a much better show. This is actually worth watching. We had... it started off with Roman Reigns, and, he, said that, he did what he said he was going to do. And then you had the return of Jimmy Uso. So, they're all aligned, but which led to a match between Cesaro and Seth, and the winner gets a shot at WrestleMania Backlash. Surprise, surprise, Jimmy Uso gets involved, and it costs Seth the match, so Cesaro is now going to WrestleMania Backlash. And then Seth is upset with Roman, and blah, 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 blah. It's not bad. I just don't know how this makes Cesaro important. It just really puts more of the focus on Roman Reigns, and they really need to build Cesaro as somebody that's important, and it just seems like he's just going to fade into the background. He's just the challenger for Roman Reigns. It's not really going to lead to him, actually winning. And I don't see them, taking the title off Roman. I don't know who's going to beat him, but it's not going to be... I don't think it's going to be Cesaro. Then that led to Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso having a, kind of a confrontation. He said, either join me or leave. And he, walked up to leave, and Jay tried to get Jimmy to come back. And then it led to Cesaro attacking Roman in the ring. And then Jay came in, and then he got beat up by Cesaro. And then... Jimmy, comes to his senses and attacks Cesaro, and then and hits him with his move, and so Cesaro, lays out everybody, and they're like, he can be champion, and it's like, okay, yeah, I guess he can. The camera work in WWE is so ridiculous. When he hit the pile driver, or whatever he calls it, they cut 3 different times. It's hard to enjoy the move. I don't know. WWE just seems so lame. Now that this is their lame duck period of time, where they do absolutely nothing till probably SummerSlam, and they think we're all supposed to just tune in and watch. And I'm just like, I don't care. Since you don't care, I don't care. And that's what it feels like, a show that just doesn't care. Bianca Belair, to me, they're giving her the Becky Lynch treatment after WrestleMania 35, where she faced Lacey. Now she's going to have a feud with Bayley, and, nobody's going to care. It's just, it doesn't feel like anything is going to happen. Nobody's going to lose a title. Nobody's going to do anything. So why should I care? If the titles aren't going to, if I don't feel the titles are in jeopardy, then what's the point of titles? What's the point of matches? And that's the thing. None of these matches mean anything. Nothing seems like it means anything. We're just in a holding pattern till SummerSlam, and even then it won't be that great. And then it'll go to, WrestleMania? It's just rinse, repeat, over and over again. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to cover this in depth like I do other shows, because they don't deserve it. I might talk about MLW more. I might even watch NXT, although I don't really like NXT either. This is just... WWE just is so patterned to the point of I don't care. I'm glad Cesaro's getting a push, but I don't think he's only going to get pushed so far. But it's better than where he was. Roman Reigns, I love his character. It's great. He's the best thing on WWE, but where is this going to? What matches is this leading to, other than Brock Lesnar and The Rock? Okay, great. So I don't know. I don't have anything really to say about WWE. I thought SmackDown's a good show. If you want to watch a good show of WWE, watch SmackDown. I would suggest DVRing it so that you can fast forward through the stuff that just doesn't matter, which is, they bring in, it was all retro, night, but they didn't do anything real retro. They put in a holographic fist. It's so patterned. I could care less. And I don't know who this show is for. And people that are like, "Oh, this is great." No, it's not. It's not great. It's not great because it's not building to anything. Or maybe it is building to something. I guess is Jimmy versus Roman the big match? Maybe. Maybe that's where they're leading to, but I don't see that setting the world on fire. I don't see anything setting the world on fire in WWE. Brock will come back and they'll have that match, and okay, great. And then we'll have Rock and Roman, and that'll be good. And that's it. That's all they've got. And I'm tired of it. I don't care. I don't care about any of these feuds. I don't care about any of these matches. WrestleMania Backlash seems like such a throwaway show. Nothing matters in WWE. That's my assessment of it. When I come back, I'm going to talk about the Pillman documentary, and I'm going to talk about the Macho Man documentary. So stay tuned. So let's talk about the Macho Man documentary from A&E, which is really, it says 2 hours, but it's really only an hour and 25 minutes. Not bad. I like the Piper one better. Once again, it just kind of skirts through everything. They pretend like he did absolutely nothing in WCW. They don't talk about the DDP feud. They don't even talk about WrestleMania 5 and WrestleMania 4 when, he turned face, and then they did the whole year-long build to Hogan versus Savage. How do you just gloss over that? They talk about the match at WrestleMania 3 with Ricky Steamboat, and they talk about how they wrote it out step for step, move for move, which is interesting. That's about it. Then they get into, it starts off with, the history of his stuff with baseball and things like that, and how he could throw with both arms because he hurt his right arm, so then he learned to throw with his left, or it might have been vice versa. They have Kurt Hawkins from WWE talking about that. I'm like, why is he an expert on there? We got Pete Rosenberg, a fan, he's on there. We got the guy from Billions, who's a fan, talking about it. It's like, I don't really want to hear from these people. We got Poffo, I keep forgetting his name, his brother there, he's talking about it, but it kind of feels like he's working everybody. Hogan is just in Hogan mode. There's a little bit of glimpse here and there at interesting things he says, and then he'll say something like, "Oh, there was no heat between us," and then we'll cut to Ricky Steamboat, and he'll say, "Oh, there was heat between us." It feels so forced, and it's so typical WWE. They show Vince, and he says, "When I first saw Randy, I thought he was small." This size fetish that Vince has. This is why he can't get past anything else. And this is why he is stuck in his mentality that he is. It just continues to confirm what I know about WWE is that they're stuck in a time warp. They think it's the 80s, and it's not. They don't get it, and I don't know what to say. This documentary is not bad, but you got a bunch of people on there. I don't want to hear from Bubba the Love Sponge. I don't care what he has to say. They talk about how, he was put into commentary. They talk about the stuff with Elizabeth. Some of the most interesting stuff is the Gorgeous George stuff, which she talked about in a shoot interview before. They show clips of the shoot interview that Randy did in 2000. That was kind of cool. And they talk about the rap album. They talk about, the Spider-Man 2 very briefly. Spider-Man 1, the Spider-Man role where he was, Bonesaw. They talk a little bit about that. They talk about how when he went to WCW, he wanted to, he felt he needed to be bigger and size things. And they talk a little bit about the Hogan feud. The problem is with this documentary, like the other one, is it's just all over the place. It's not focused on one subject of the topic. It's trying to hit all these different things. And that's my problem with WWE documentaries. Is they're not just focusing on one aspect of something. They're trying to hit everything. And these documentaries work so much better when they're focused. I watched the Two Dudes with Attitude one. That was more focused. It was Sean and Nash, and they talked a little bit about click things and here and there, but they didn't go into NWO territory. They went up to everything, leading up to that. So they had a focus, and this doesn't have a focus. It's just all over the place. They talk about his death. They have the Billions guy say, well, if he died, if you're gonna go, that's a Randy Macho Man Savage way to go. They talk about Liz. Then they go into Liz, her death, and I'm like, is this a Macho Man documentary or a Miss Elizabeth documentary? And they just don't. It doesn't know where it wants to be or where it wants to go, and I just feel like it would be so much better if they focused on a subject of that, or do multiple episodes. I think all of these would have been much better on multiple episodes, as opposed to cramming everything into an hour and 25 minutes. You can't do it. You can't do it with Austin. You can't do it with Roddy Piper, but this is what they're doing. They just completely throw away WCW. They talk about how, the commentary thing wasn't working for him, so he went to WCW, and they say that, basically he no-showed, didn't tell anybody, he just showed up on WCW TV. Maybe he did that. I don't know. We're hearing this from the WWE perspective, and this whole thing is very pro-WWE. You got Pete Rosenberg. They're trying to say that he had a 7-year career. No, he didn't. He had life in WCW. He won the title. He was an important character there. Was he as important as Hogan? No, he wasn't. But there was a time there where he was. He was one of the focal points and one of the main reasons DDP got over to the way he did. And they just completely forget about that because they don't know. They only know their history. So I don't really like these A&E documentaries. I think they're missing a lot. But, it wasn't bad. When they got past WWE and WCW and they started getting into the Gorgeous George stuff, they really started, it felt, focused. As they started talking about his paranoia and, they hinted at, how he made sexual advances, he wanted to sleep with her sister. They didn't really talk about that much. They kind of just skirted that under the issue, but that was one of the things that led to their breakup. They talked about how he was taping them all, and that was kind of the last straw for Gorgeous when she saw that, he was listening in on conversations and taping them, and he had cameras in all the houses, and, Nash says one thing. He said that Gorgeous kind of made him hip, so that was kind of cool. I don't know. It just feels like it needed to be more. One of the things I liked is they showed a clip of Macho Man and Bill Maher hugging, and I'm trying to find the clip, and no one knows where this is from. It's like, is this politically correct? Incorrect? Is this from? Where did this clip come from? So nobody knows, and I'm trying to find it. But not bad. I like so far out of all of them, I like the Piper one the best. I thought the Austin one was okay. This one was okay, and yeah. All right, so now let's talk about one that is really good, and I'm talking about The Dark Side of the Ring, The Return, Season 3. They're covering Brian Pillman. Now, it said Part 1. It was actually Part 1 and Part 2 mixed in between. As I'm like, it goes all the way to his death. I'm like, if there's a Part 2 to this, what is that going to be? There's nothing else to tell. So, you got 2 hours of that, and it's really focused on, his wrestling career, and they they talk about the loose cannon. They interview Dave Meltzer. Yes, they interview Steve Austin. You got Jim Cornette. You got three people that are like, I really want to hear about them. None of this, Bruce Pritchard stuff where he just shows up and it's like he doesn't have anything to say anymore. He's become another WWE guy, and that's what he is. But I really, they talk about his football career. They talk about him transitioning to wrestling. They talk about, his wife, and then him meeting Melanie Pillman, who became his next wife. And, they have his kids on there. There's a lot of things that they talk to. They talk to Kim Wood, who was his strength and conditioning coach in the NFL and was a really big part of his life. So they got all the guys that you really wanted to hear from. This is so much better than these A&E documents because it's a focused thing on were all leading to, what happened to his death, and and how these things, and they talk about how he got in the Hummer accident, and that he pretty much had to have facial jaw reconstruction, and how he Eric Bischoff says that he was not duped into Brian Pillman giving him a release. He says that he did it because he wanted him to make. Maybe that's true from Dave Meltzer, and from a lot of people, they don't think so. And Kim, who the strength, he kind of was like, these guys didn't know what Pillman was doing, because Pillman very much created the character that you didn't know whether he was whether he was in on the joke. It was very Andy Kaufman-esque, so it had that really cool, real feel to it. I mean, he was in WCW, and then he shows up in ECW, and he's talking about smart marks. And in WCW, he says, Booker Man and things like that. And then he goes to WWE. I mean, the fact that he was able to convince Eric Bischoff to give him an actual release so that he could go negotiate with Vince and get more money. And the fact that he was able to do this after he had a car wreck and he was never going to be the same again. That's amazing. One of the sad things I did not know about, but I don't know enough about Pillman. There's a really great book out there, and I think I'm going to read it, because after seeing this, I really want to. When Rochelle, his first wife, found out that they were cheating, on him, they kind of tried to take Melanie, and Pillman tried to take Rochelle's, daughter away, and that ended up with Rochelle, his first wife, shooting herself in the head, and she was pronounced dead on the where they airlifted her to the hospital. And Brian Pillman's sister, who's all over this, said she had to call her mother and tell her that. And it's like, wow, that's one of the things I like about this drama, is it lets things breathe. Dark Side lets things breathe. It's not let's just jump to the next thing. It's let's let this breathe. And then that was really heartbreaking. And then I could go through the whole thing, but it's really good. After he was dead, they talk about, Vince putting Melanie on TV, which a lot of people were like, why'd you do this? You only did this to pop a rating. And Jim Ross is very frank with me. He's like, I don't think we should have done that to pop a rating. And that's the only reason you put somebody in that state, but to pop a rating. And then they talk about how the kids, ended up, the stepfather that Melanie's next husband that she married, ended up abusing the kids in some ways. It sounded like physically and emotionally. And he had dogs, and he pretty much would ground Brian Pillman Jr. in there. Brian Pillman Jr. is all over this, and he talks about how that, and was really the sister, Brian Pillman's sister, that brought the family all back together. All the kids from the different marriages. Because he had Brian Pillman Jr. from Melanie's family. We had Danny from another marriage that not a marriage, but from a sexual escapade that he found out later that he had a child. And then you have his first wife. Child. So you got all these, and basically his sister brought them all together, and you can see how she's a great human being. And then they ended on a positive note. You see Brian Pillman Jr. is going out. He's following his father's footsteps, and I've seen his work. He's pretty good. I think he's going to be really good. I was watching him on MLW before I recorded this, and I was watching him face Jacob Fatu, and I was like, he's doing little things that are good. I think he's gonna be good. Maybe he's the guy that beats Omega for the belts. I don't know, but I see a lot. I see a lot of good traits in him, and he's in the time period where it's not so focused on size. It's focused on, are you over, and can you go? And that's the great thing about AEW and MLW. These people are getting chances where WWE has their stuck-in mentality of like, this is the Roman show and nobody else is going to get past this level till we've anointed a new guy. Doesn't matter what you do. So I really like this documentary. I mean, it delves into. It talked about the shooting angle with Austin, where he pulled the gun on him, and that was one of the first times that Vince had to actually apologize for an angle. They talk about Austin's all over it. He talks about the gold chain, which I've always known about that. He talked about, the gold chain is very important because that's one of the things Brian got him. That they did together as the Hollywood Blondes, and he always wears it. You can see it in a lot of Austin's promos. He's wearing that gold chain, and that's his, memory for, Brian in his work. I mean, it's kind of sad because you don't want to like look back and say what could have, but if he didn't get in that wreck, he probably could have had an amazing run with Austin in 1998. He would have been probably one of the guys that you could build a feud around. Maybe he could have been the first guy that he goes after because you would be blurring that line. Although I didn't think well, they really couldn't use him well. So I mean, he was a mess at that time when they got him. It's a sad story because he was really unique, and his promos all come off so real and guttural and vicious. They talk about how his voice, he had polyps when he was at a young age, so they had to strip his voice down over and over, multiple surgeries. Jim Ross thinks that started kind of that loose cannon thing where he, really felt like he had to shine and he had to like prove himself every time. But it's an interesting doc. I can't say anything really bad about it. I really love these Dark Side of the Ring documentaries. I love the Benoit one. I love the Owen one. You got that amazing moment when Owen's wife, Martha, pulls out the carabiner that was supposed to hold him up, and it's like right there. That's all the evidence you need to know that they did not do this right. I know that was really sad, but I digress. Let's get back to the Pillman. This is probably one of the best. As WWE did one and a long time ago, it never really delved into. I haven't seen it, but I can almost imagine what it's going to be because I know how they shoot and how they do things, and they don't let anything breathe. And this would let things breathe, and they really, highlight those sad moments. It's not time to cut away. Let's go. They're filmed so in such a cinematic way that just feels, it's so enticing to the eye. And I'm just really thankful that we've got these Dark Side of the Ring docs. I'm really interested to see what they do with the Ultimate Warrior. And he's going to do one on the Ultimate Warrior, and it's like, wow. So we're gonna have the two compare and contrast here, and I'm like, I'm putting my money on the Dark Side of the Ring because they're gonna talk to the real people that knew him, and not the WWE's version of it. So 2 docs. Watch Dark Side of the Ring. Really good. If you want to see a really good documentary, even if you're not a wrestling fan, I think this works. And a lot of people that aren't wrestling fans watch Dark Side of the Ring as well. So they are pulling all together. And now they're doing Dark Side of Football, which I really am excited for that because I'm like, that is something that needed to be hit a long time ago. The Dark Side of Sports. But yeah, it's a sad tale of Brian Pillman, but wow, what a creative energy he had. I mean, the good news is, though, Brian Pillman Jr. got out of that, and now I think he's destined to be great. And with that, I think that's a good way to end. Let's end on that positive note. I want to say thank you for listening, as always. You can find me at Justin Yachts, and I will see you next time on the DMF.